New federal funding opportunity from the National Institute of Health will use $8.4 million to support clinical trials on the safety and efficacy of psychedelic assisted therapy, chronic pain in older adults. An NIH notice of funding opportunity posted on Wednesday says the research can include classic psychedelics, including psilocybin, DMT, LSD, and mescaline, as well as similar compounds such as MDMA. Cannabis and ketamine are not considered psychedelics for the purpose of these clinical trials. Funding notice says, quote, approximately 40% of older Americans report living with chronic pain, with treatment of pain later in life involving acetaminophen, nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, opioids, and other drugs, along with behavioral therapy, physical activity, acupuncture, and electrical stimulation being complex and often inadequate. A potential novel approach to treatment of chronic pain in adults involves psychedelic-assisted therapy. It continues. Research with psychedelics was inspired by millennia of indigenous experiences incorporating sacred plant medicines in ceremonial healing practices. More recently, the notice says, evidence for the efficacy of PAT, which is psychedelic-assisted therapy, of course, has been particularly notable in depression, anxiety, especially existential distress, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance use disorders, among other indications. The grant will be overseen by NIH component agencies, the National Institute on Aging, and the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. Will award up to $3.4 million per year in fiscal 2025 and 26, up to $5 million per year in fiscal 2027 through 2029. A broad range of eligible organizations include colleges and universities, nonprofits, for-profit businesses, state or local governments, federal agencies, and others, such as school districts or tribal organizations. New funding is aimed at supporting a clinical trials network involving multiple institutions, collecting safety and early efficacy data among older people with chronic pain. First phase will involve safety and efficacy study in older adults. The second phase will involve expanded safety and efficacy studies in older adults with chronic pain conditions. This funding structure is expected to lead to a higher level of collaboration, planning, and harmonization that would be possible through multiple individually funded grants. Federal agency notes that while previous studies of PAT have included limited numbers of older adults who have tolerated treatment well, without significant adverse effects, more focused safety and efficacy studies in older adults are needed. Applications for the new grant money can be submitted as of September 10th. The application window will close a month later on October 10th. The earliest start date for work is set for July 2025. Recently, a separate study published by the American Medical Association found that single-dose psilocybin was, quote, not associated with risk of paranoia, while other adverse effects, such as headaches, are generally tolerable and resolved within 48 hours. That study, published in JAMA Psychiatry earlier this month, involved a meta-analysis of double-blind clinical trials where psilocybin was used to treat anxiety and depression from 1966 up until last year. AMA published a separate study last month that similarly contradicted commonly held beliefs about the potential risks of psychedelic use, finding that the substances, quote, may be associated with lower rates of psychotic symptoms among adolescents, end quote. Also, a recent result of the clinical trial published by AMA in December suggests efficacy and safety of psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy for treatment of bipolar II disorder, a mental health condition often associated with debilitating and difficult-to-treat depressive episodes. The association also published research last August that found people with major depression experienced, quote, clinically significant sustained reduction, unquote, in their symptoms just one dose of psilocybin. Another recent study suggests that the use of full-spectrum psychedelic mushrooms extract has a more powerful effect than chemically synthesized psilocybin alone, which could have implications for psychedelic-assisted therapy. Findings imply that the experience of the Organic mushrooms may involve a so-called entourage effect, similar to what's observed with cannabis and its many components. I'm Todd Denkin with High at 9 News. I think this is great. Government finally using funds in a way that will actually help people. What a concept. What do you guys think about this psilocybin study approved by your government?
You know, I find it interesting, very interesting, Todd. And I'm very confused a little bit by it because I've never heard of psychedelics being used to treat pain. Yeah. I've heard of it to treat mental illness and a whole host of other wide variety of different things, but I've never heard it used as a pain medication.
No, I haven't either until this study, but apparently lots of older adults, in fact, millions of them, 40% of older Americans report living with chronic pain, and anything that, and quite honestly, that's why they're the fastest growing cannabis consumers as well.
Yep.
Because of the pain buzz. But I think it's exciting that, they're going to see if psilocybin does help with pain.
I mean, I just feel like if someone is saying that, and mind you, I'm not a doctor, so, but I just feel
like played one on TV.
I have, and yes, and in hotel rooms, yes, that's a fact. but here's the thing, though, Todd, is I just wonder if these people aren't necessarily losing any pain, they're just being detracted by all of the cool things that they're seeing and feeling from these psychedelics, that is just removing that thought or that focus of pain being there mentally, and it's more of a placebo effect.
That definitely could be. It's not placebo effect. It's literally your brain is wired to tell you when you're in pain. So if you disrupt that connection, your body doesn't know that it's in pain. Just how like Advil works and things like that. I think this is good on a lot of other levels because the majority of the elderly in America specifically are on a lot of opiates for pain in their later years, and that causes significant damage, actually. And I'm not going to get too like graphic here, but like the biggest problem with the elderly people in America is not that they're like in pain and they're on opiates. It's that the opioids create respiratory depression, which sometimes they just die in their sleep because they can't get enough oxygen. And two, it has to do with the constipation that comes with taking opioids, and there's a lot of blockage and backup, and that can actually create sepsis in the patients as their colons can rip and the waste goes like inside their body. So wow. I know it's pretty graphic. Sorry for that visual, but at the same time, that's a bigger problem for elderly patients in America than anything else, really. So there's a lot of new natural I don't want to call them narcotics, but they're narcotic-like. Mitragynine, kratom, as it's very commonly referred to. They're creating some pretty intense, more powerful effects from these natural drugs. They're creating a 7-hydroxy mitragynine. So just like how 11-hydroxy THC is more powerful in your body as it enzymatically converts, they're actually able to create the same synthetic effect of the enzymatic conversion and make the drug already inherently more powerful. So these things are cool. I think they're, the early reports seen on the mitragynine side is that it doesn't cause respiratory depression or constipation. So huge plus for a lot of people that are looking for some pain relief out there. Yeah, this is good.
Interesting. Dr. Delta Chemo says in the chat, he says it's similar to the use of gabapentin, which is an
gabapentin. As soon as Saman started talking about the booty and the number 2, I just knew I had to get in my 2 cents.
Oh, boy.
Which is, the thing that seniors should really be thinking about is tuning in every Monday through Friday, High at 9 News, for their daily constitutional, because we talk a lot of shit and we are the shit. So that can definitely help with those blockages that could be the result of opiate use as to mitigate pain. I just love that the government is funding medical research across the board. That could never be a bad use of funds. I am so hopeful that we will find the cure to cancer in the pituitary gland of some odd little salamander tucked away in some vernal pool. And without government funding for things, initiatives, we miss out on a lot of opportunities as a society. And so this is government funding research is a good example of the value of government.
Mm-hmm. And leave it to Yarrow, who usually has the opposite of constipation of the mouth.
Oh, yeah. Would that be considered diarrhea?
DJ diarrhea with the run.
You picking up what Yarrow's putting down?
I hope not. I hope not. I don't work in the sanitation
what
department.
Saman said about sepsis is really, really important for those of you who are young enough not to know. In industrialized countries, if somebody gets sepsis, they pretty much have about a 75% chance of dying. Well, so we avoid that. We avoid a lot of bad things.
I know that all too well because last year I was in danger of sepsis.
Yeah, you had this. You had this from that third world pathogen that you got from somewhere.
Yeah, my liver almost exploded.
Yeah.
Wow.
Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rico has suffered from this.
I had a bit of a scare with that as well.
Don't drink the homebrew.
Doctor told me if I didn't get to the ER, or if I had arrived at the ER an hour later, my liver would have ruptured, would have had sepsis, and I would have been dead.
Yeah, well, we're very glad that you're still here, Rico.
Very glad.
Yes.
I had a scare with that
but then I would have been on 5 days a week instead of just 2.
Oh boy. Oh, you see what he did there?
Hey, you started it with the diarrhea gap.
Yeah.
No, but just so
before I take a trip.
Mm-hmm. All jokes aside, I mean, I think the bigger problem is, when these problems get exacerbated in a populace that is, in the hospitals, in the doctor's office continuously, that creates a big kind of immediate need for serious critical life care for these patients instead of just something like treating their knee pain or their lower back pain. So definitely opioids, as we know as cannabis users and proponents of plant medicine, look, opioids most of the time come from plants too, but they're highly refined and purified and synthesized into other drugs. I think there's just a baseline that we want a more healthy option for some of these things. I think the mitragynine is great. I'd love to see more things that come out of this. And I'm really encouraged by this study to hear how psilocybin even can affect pain receptors in a lot of these patients. So I think this is great. And hopefully there's going to be more alternatives to opioids as time goes on.
Agreed, not to mention the addiction problem with opioids as well.
Yeah.
And everything that does to your body as well.
Exactly. And on that, we got to roll to a commercial. We're going to be right back.